Okay, we're continuing where we're studying, and we're studying in chapter 34, the assault on Dinah, or the kidnapping of Dinah, or the abduction of Dinah, or I don't know what you want to say, hostage taking of Dinah. It's not, well, maybe she went there willingly, but that seems to be a stretch to me. So I'm sorry?
Well, doesn't the text say she was raped?
The text is ambiguous. The text says, that Shechem saw her, and he took her, and he lay with her, and he violated her.
Well,
But it doesn't say specifically the word that elsewhere in the Torah is used for the sexual assault. So it could possibly be that she willingly consented, but that raises a whole question, like, what does it mean for a girl in that time in the ancient world to quote unquote consent to a relationship with the prince of the land? That raises all other issues. So I think when we talk about the fact that what did he do to her, it raises a question which the text is ambiguous about.
yeah.
Okay, so let me make Rabbi Yosef the host here, the co-host, so he can share the screen. Okay, so Rabbi Yosef is now the co-host, and let's get busy. So okay. So what happens now? Hold on 1 second. Okay, so you have the place, Rabbi Yosef?
Yeah, verse 15.
Baruch Hashem.
I think.
Okay, so verse 15. So the verse tells us that Vayomru, no, you're a little ahead. Vayanu, we're up to verse 13. Vayanu b'nei Yaakov et Shlem et Chamor aviv b'Mirma, and the children of Jacob answered Shlem and Chamor their father with Chamor his father b'Mirma. Rashi said yesterday that means with wisdom, the Chachma. And they said to him, Vaydaber, and they spoke, Asher Timei es Dinah Chosam, because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. Vayomru aleihem, and they said to them, oh, so we saw that verse yesterday. And they said to them, right there, Thera. So they said, we can't do this thing. We can't do this thing to give our sister to the man who is uncircumcised. We can't do this thing to give our sister to the man who's uncircumcised. And if you won't, we're in chapter 34, verse 14. They said, we can't do this thing to give our sister to the one who's uncircumcised because it is an insult to us. Rashi says, Shemetz pasul hu etzleinu. It's considered to us a matter of tremendous shemetz, is disgusting. One who wants to insult his friend says to him, Arel ata, you're uncircumcised. O ben Arel, you're the son of one uncircumcised. So basically they're saying, we can't marry you because you're not circumcised. That's what he's saying. So that's very problematic, obviously. So there, anyway, this might have been true, but there's no evidence also that they're not allowed to marry, that their daughters can't marry somebody who's uncircumcised. It says that the men of their households had to be circumcised. They could have.
Even Rachel used the word cherpa in last week's parsha. So cherpa is a feeling, meaning I feel this way, you feel that way. It's not about the legalistic view. For us, it is a shame for us that you will be uncircumcised. We don't want you as a brother-in-law. And right, Rachel nobody was shaming her for being barren. It runs in the family.
Okay, very nice. Very nice. So then they said as follows. This will be Ach Bezot, verse 15. With chapter 34, verse 15, Thera. So we say, with this, Neot Lachem, with this it will be pleasing to you. Im Tiu Kamono, Limoachem Kol Zachar. If you'll be like us, to circumcise every male. If you'll be like us, to circumcise every male. What does Rashi say? Na'ot lachem, we will agree to you. Nisratzel lachem, we will comply with you. Lashon v'yei osu hakohanim. The Kohanim agreed. Lihimol, to have every male amongst you circumcised. Lios nimol, eino lishon lif'ol. El lishon lihipael. It's not an expression of acting, but an expression of acted upon. So this is what you need to do. Then, v'nasnu espenosenu lachem, we'll give our daughters to you. V'espenosechem nikachanu, and your daughters will take for ourselves. V'yashavnu itchem v'ayinu am echad. Said, if you do this, if you circumcise, we'll give our daughters to you, and your daughters will take for ourselves, and we'll dwell with you, and we will be one nation. What does Rashi say? She says, your daughters we will take for ourselves. Atamotzei batnai, you find in this conditional clause that they say, Atamotzei batnai shamar chamor liYaakov. You find in the stipulation which Chamor stated to Yaakov, ubetshuvot B'nei Yaakov Chamor, you have to look closely at their language, Rashi is saying. Look what Chamor said to Jacob, and look what Chamor responded. Shetol achashivut b'bnei Yaakov. That they hung the greater significance upon the sons of Jacob, likach benot Shechem, to take the daughters of Shechem, eight sheyivcharu lahem, whatever they chose for themselves. Uvenosehem yitnu lahem, but they would give their daughters to them. According to their own opinion, as it states, "V'natnuet binotenu," we will give our daughters according to our opinion. Vet binotechem nikach, but your daughters we will take, meaning to say we'll give you whichever ones you want, and we'll take whichever ones we want. That's how Rashi reads it. K'chol asher nachpotz, whatever we want. But ukeshedibru Chamor u'Shechem b'no, but when Chamor and Shechem went back to speak to their own people, El Yoshvei Iram, when he went back to speak to their own people, Hafchu advarim, they turned the words around. They said, Et benoteam nikachanu. They said, their daughters we will take, Vet benotenu nitan lahem. Kedei lo ro'atzotam. So when Jacob's son spoke, they said, we're going to give you our daughters, and we'll take your daughters. But when Chamor went back, they said, we'll take from them whatever we want, and we'll give them whatever we want. Meaning to say, they were trying to appease their own people. So that they should consent to be circumcised. That's how Rashi reads it. You could also read it that the whole thing was a trick on the part of Hamor and Shem, because they did not want to be, they really had no intention of being equal partners with Jacob and his sons. So look at the next verse. V'imlo tishmeu eleinu. If you don't listen to us, lihimol, to circumcise, we'll take our daughter and go. Well, where's their daughter? Where's Dinah right now? They have to take her. Where is she? She's being kidnapped still. She's being held hostage. She's being isolated by Shem and Hamor. Vayitvu divreihem beinei Hamor. Hamor like this. Ubeinei Shem ben Hamor. The eyes of Shem ben, the son of Hamor. V'lo echar hana'ar la'asot hadavar. He did not delay at all. The Shem. Ki chafetz bevat Yaakov. He desired the daughter of Jacob. He was the most honorable one from everyone in his household. Verse 20. Vayavo Chamor u'Shem beno al shari Ram. And Chamor and Shem his son came to the gate of their city. Vayidabru al anshe Yiram lemor. And they spoke to the men of their town, saying, Ha'anashim ha'ewe. These men, shleimim heim. They are shleimim heim itanu. They are peaceful with us. Rashi says, Bishalom, b'leiv shalom. They said, these Jews, they're at peace with us. I mean, they didn't say Jews, these Jacob's children. V'yishvu ba'aretz. They want to dwell in the land. V'yischaru otah. They want to trade in it. V'aretz hinei rachavat yadayim ufneihem. The land is broad before them. As Rashi pointed out, they reversed this. They said, their daughters we will take for ourselves, l'nashim, for wives. And our daughters we will give to them. So now, the next verse says, Ach bezot ye'otu anu. This is what we have to do. This is the condition. Hanashim l'shevet itanu. That the people, if these people want, ye'otu alanu hanashim l'shevet itanu. These people desire to live with us, l'yot am echad, to become one single people. How do we get that? We want every male needs to be circumcised just like they're circumcised. But then he says in verse 23, you see, I think this is a crucial verse to seeing what the real intent of Shechem was. In verse 23, he says, Miknehem v'kinyanam v'chol be'emtam, their cattle and their possessions and all their animals, they're ours. Everything that's theirs is really ours. Let us just agree with them. They'll live with us. But their real plan there was to overtake them. Everything that's going to belong to them is really ours. So this, sometimes you go back into the peace treaty rooms, you see what their plan was. Their plan was a takeover from within. So now I think the text here in doing this is trying to justify the reactions of Jacob's sons. This was not, an agreement to let their sister marry. This was, in effect, an existential crisis that was being posed. Yes, Jerry.
But why was it existential?
Because they were going to take over and subsume all of Jacob's sons into their people and thereby get rid of Jacob's son's tribe. They're going to take everything.
Yeah. Well, ad hayom hazeh, this idea of follow the money has followed mankind up to the year 2023. Whenever there's any problems in our federal government or even among private corporations, the motto is follow the money to understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, right, you're exactly right. Their intent was to get all the money from Jacob's children. That's what they're saying. We're going to marry a couple of girls to them, and they'll marry a couple of girls to us, and then we'll get them in here. We'll have all their money. We'll have their business. They'll be part of our tribe. We'll expand our tribe. What do you think is going to happen? There's only 12 of their sons, but we've got a whole city here. They're going to be subsumed within us.
Right.
That's their plan. That's their plan. They took Dinah to force Jacob's, because they must have known that Jacob wasn't going to allow his daughter to marry a Canaanite. Because Jacob couldn't marry a Canaanite. Isaac couldn't marry a Canaanite. So they had to force Dinah. And it was a financial incentive. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Vayishme'u el Chamor ve'al Shechem beno. And they listened to Chamor and to his son Shechem. They all listened. Kol yotzei shariro. All the people who went out from the gate. Vayimol kol zachar. They circumcised every male. Kol yotzei shariro. Anyone who went out from the gate. Vayi biyom hashlishi, and it was on the third day. Biyotam koavim, when they were in the most pain. Vayechu shnei bnei Yaakov, and two of Jacob's sons, Shimon and Levi, Achei Dinah, the brothers of Dinah, Ish Charbo, they each took their sword. Vayavo al ir Betach, they came to the city confidently. Vayargu kol zachar, they killed every male. Shnei bnei Yaakov, banav hayu, they were his sons. Va'afal pikein na'agu atzman Shimon v'Levi. Nevertheless, they conducted themselves as Shimon and Levi, Kishar Anashim, She'enan Banav, Shalom Natlu Eitzah Himenu. So Rashi clearly criticizes them. Rashi reads it as they were his sons, but yet they acted like Shimon and Levi. They didn't act like his sons because they didn't ask him for advice.
Probably based on
So
Jacob.
what Rashi is saying is that the text is telling us they were his sons, even though we already know they were his sons, in order to teach us that they didn't act like his sons. They should have consulted with him.
But I'm saying it's probably based on the blessing that Yaakov gave them at the end of his days.
Meaning what?
Shimon ve'Levi achim klei chamas mecharotehem besodam al tavo nafshi bekalam al
Besodam al
techad
tavo
kivodi.
nafshi. Besodam al tavo nafshi.
That's why. Yeah, bekalam al techad kivodi.
Right. So, but that was
I don't
the
want
bracha he
anything to
gave
do
later.
with them. So that I'm saying that Rashi is only sharing with us what will be in the future when Yaakov says the same exact words.
Yeah, so I see. So that's why Rashi is reading it on the basis of the curses that Jacob gives them at the end of his life. And not only that, but also the fact that the tribe of Shimon basically disappears. Very, very small tribe. And it calls them the brothers of Dinah. Why are they called the brothers of Dinah? Because they gave their lives. They dedicated their lives for her. Therefore, it calls them brothers. So there's basically this contrast. On the one hand, criticism for not consulting with Yaakov. On the other hand, praise for defending their brother.
Was Dinah and Shimon and Levi, all three of them born of the same mother?
Shimon and Levi and Dinah were all children of Leah.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, sir. So they're all children of Leah. So they came in so confidently because the men of Shlem were in pain. Shall you call Avim? What were they going to do? They were recovering from surgery.
Right.
Midrash Agadah b'tuchim hayu al kol choshel zakein. The Midrash tells us that they relied upon the power of Jacob. Okay, verse 25. Vahi bayoma. No, verse 26. Chamor ve'et Shlem beno argu lefi charav. They killed Chamor and his son Shlem by the sword. Vayikhu et Dina mibeit Shlem, and they took Dina from the house of Shlem. Vayitzeu, and then they departed. So this is very clear, by the way. This to me demonstrates that they were unable to get to Dina until they killed Shlem and Chamor. They killed Chamor and Shlem by the sword, and only then could they take Dina from this house. This whole time where they were, quote unquote, negotiating good faith, one side had the hostage.
Unless you take the position that Dina was compliant with some procedure until her would-be husband stabbed, she stayed by.
You could say the position that she was compliant. You for sure could take that position, but it's speculative.
Yeah.
There's no. It's like a midrash that maybe like some modern feminist thinkers want to say, oh, this woman has agency, but the Bible is not shy about telling us when women do things on their own. The Torah is not shy about that. The Torah shows Rachel's eagerness, Rebecca's eagerness to go. It tells us about Yael's willingness to go. It tells us about Devorah's willingness, Zipporah's willingness. So the Torah does not mention anything about Dina's willingness here. So any suggestion would need to have some support. So there is no support for it at all in the text. It says she went out to see the daughters of the land, and then he took her.
And the language is bayan now.
Well, the language is certainly he violated vayan now, which is an unusual word. It's not the word for sexual assault, but it's not a pretty word. It doesn't say she loved him. Never. It says he loved her. She might have said, "I wish you didn't. I wish you didn't love me." She's almost a passive actor. Well, she's not almost, but she seems to be. Verse 27. B'nei Yaakov ba'u al chalem. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain. Vayavozu ha'ir asher timu achosam. They plundered the city that had defiled their sister. Now, why are they plundering the city? Rashi says, al chalem lifashet et ha'chalem, to strip the slain. They plundered the city. Rashi says nothing yet. Vetzonam vet bikaram, and their sheep and their cattle, vet chamorehem, vetasher ba'ir, vetasher basadela kafu, and their sheep and their cattle and their donkeys that were in the city and the fields they took. Rashi says nothing. So he took everything. Vet kol chelam, vet kol tapam, and all of their wealth and their children, and their shayam and their wives, shavu. They took captive, vayavozu, and they plundered vet kol asher b'bayit, everything in the house. Took everything. Rashi, chelam means memonam, their wealth. Shavu, what does that mean? They took captive? Lashon shviya, expression of captivity. Lefikach ta'amo milra. Okay. Rashi says, next verse. Verse 30. Vayomer Yaakov el Shimon ve'el Levi. Jacob says to Shimon and Levi, are you sending me that there were some chayalim wounded difficult today?
Yeah, so those are their names. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just
Terrible. I thought there was a ceasefire.
He broke it.
Right?
He broke it.
Yeah, not surprising. Like who could be surprised about that at all, right?
Thank you for making me laugh.
Right. Who's surprised at all about the ceasefire being broken by Hamas? So,
But sorry, Rabbi, back to the verse. The idea of us taking captive. It, later when we conquered the land, it was solely for the service of the temple, for the general service of the people. People didn't take personal slaves, you know, and so I think that's also very positive. That the reason why the Torah is telling us, Moshe is writing this almost 1,000 years after it happened. No, almost 500 years after it happened, and um, and all he's saying is basically to remember that yes, they took these
no,
people, but
not 500 years. From the time of Avram to Moshe was 400 years. Till they exited was
right,
400 years. So there's a
almost
little bit
200
less
years.
there.
So just that these people, they took them to try to help them be better people, but
Oh.
if
Absolutely.
if they didn't want to convert, we weren't going to force them to be Jewish, right? So
Well, let's see Rabbi Yosef, let's look at this last pasuk. Vayomer Yaakov al Shimon al Levi. Jacob says to Shimon and Levi, Achar Timoti, you have, I don't know exactly how does Rashi says, Mashom Mayim Achurim, cloudy, Ein Datitzlu Lachsha, meaning to say you've upset me. Lavi Sheni, like the way he calls Achav an Ocher Yisrael. Who calls whom an Ocher Yisrael? He calls him an Ocher Yisrael. That's the reference in the Book of Kings.
Achav
Who's
calls
that?
Eliyahu.
Yeah, Achav calls Eliyahu an Ocher Yisrael. So I don't know if it's spelled the same way, but we have to look it up. But basically, Jacob is upset at the brothers for embarrassing him. Lavi Sheni, you made me odious. Biosheva Aretz, who made me odious amongst the people of the land. The people of the land who just kidnapped his daughter. This is like when the elders say to Moshe, you've ruined us in the eyes of Pharaoh. That's what they say. But Kanani Parizi, Vanim Mispar, I'm few in number. Vinesfu alai, and they've gathered upon me, Vikuni, and they've struck me down. Vinishmarati and Uveti, and I will be annihilated, I and my house. Meaning to say, Jacob is upset because he says, now there are other nations are going to attack me.
You're endangering my family, not
Right.
embarrassing. You've endangered your family.
That's what he says.
Yeah.
He says, so you made it cloudy. There was a tradition, Canaanite said that they'll fall to Jacob. They said, okay, they didn't think he was going to attack them yet. They thought he was first going to conquer the land, Rashi says. And we're few, we're few in number. But the brothers, the Torah gives the brothers the last words. They say, Hakizona yaseh sachotenu. Should our sister be treated like a harlot? They said to Jacob, you're worrying about these things, but are you going to allow our sister to be treated like this? It's interesting that these are the first words Jacob says in the whole passage. Jacob says nothing else. Nothing else. His only words are, you ruined my ability to be accepted or safe, to be safe or to be accepted amongst the Canaanites. He's not, this was not the approach of Abraham and Isaac. Abraham wasn't worried about being safe when he went to save Lot. Jacob is being maybe practical, but also weak. Yeah, Jerry, you had a question.
Yes. What did the Jews do with all these women, these